Hi everybody, and welcome to the UW Advisor Training Level 3 GPA Calculation. I've listed the learning outcomes on the screen, but they're also listed on the landing page, so I won't read through them. But these are the things we hope you'll gain from this training. We also hope that you'll work through the worksheet that's a part of this training module also. There's some great examples in the worksheet that will help you better understand grade point average calculating and some of the nuances that can exist within. So it's not quite as simple as just averaging grades. A lot of times students will just think they average their grades and that's their grade point average. But it's weighted on credit hour, so it's better to kind of describe them as the grade or the grade point per credit hour, which is where the average comes from. So listed on the screen are the grade points that UW uses for each grade. UW carries it to the 1,000th. So for example, an A minus is a 3.667. And as we look, a C minus is a 1.667. So a C minus is below the academic standard of a 2.0 that keeps students in good standing. We've listed some important terms on the screen. Quality points are the grade point times the credit hour, and so that's how it can be weighted on credit hour. And so then you use that quality point number and divide it by the GPA credit hours, which is important to keep in mind. Not all classes are grade point average bearing, but we take the quality points, divide it by the GPA credit hours, and we get the grade point average. Here we have an example of a possible outcome of a student semester. We've got 5 classes listed there. One of them is kind of an antique class, that PEAC 1001, but it serves as an example of a 1 credit hour course. So we can look at this example, we can see how the credit hours multiply by the grade point for each of those grades equals our quality points. So for example, the C on the first line with Economics 1010 is a grade point value of a 2.0. So multiplied by the 3 credit hours is 6. And so we add up all the quality points and we get 18.32. We add up all the GPA hours and we get 14. And so we divide the quality points by the hours and we get 1.308 for the student's grade point average. And so we'll take a look at a few examples from WYO records. These are screenshots from transcripts and WYO records. And so here we see a student semester. And we see this is a good example of weighted on credit hour. The student has 2 Bs in computer science 1200 and elementary education 1430. However, one is 3 credit hours and one is 1 credit hour. And so we see this reflected in the quality points. And so that's again where you can show a student you got 2 Bs, but they're not quite equal in their weight. And so we add up all the quality points again, and we add up all the credit hours, because here every credit hour is GPA bearing. And so we get 23.001 divided by 14, and we get 1.643. Now we can also look here, because the student failed general biology, they haven't passed all the hours that they attempted. They passed 10 and they attempted 14. And so this brings up a completion percentage, right? 10 passed hours divided by 14 attempted hours. The student completed 71.43% of the hours that they attempted. Now this doesn't affect grade point average at all, but it is important to start to understand and wrap your head around, and we'll see it more and more in the learning modules about satisfactory academic progress with regards to federal financial aid. So here's another example, and this is a good example because we're starting to see where there are some classes listed here that aren't GPA hours. And so if we take a close look, the student withdrew from Animal Science 3150. So it earns the student no quality points, but it's also not listed among the GPA hours, so it doesn't affect the grade point average at all. We see there's 3 classes listed here that are not included in the GPA hours. The first one is the Animal Science 1010, because we see that little capital letter E on the right-hand side of the screen, and that indicates that that class is excluded. And so it means that the student retook that class in a subsequent semester, which excludes the previous attempt. So those 4 credit hours and the 8 quality points are taken out of the equation. And then we also come down and look at the Math 0921 course. Because this is a 900 level course and it's not a college level course, that class is not GPA bearing, so that C has no impact on the grade point average. So for this specific semester, the computer only shows 5 grade point average hours, GPA hours, and 7 quality points, which gives the student a 1.4 grade point average. Now, in the moment when this semester was calculated, that C for Animal Science 1010 would have been included. It becomes excluded after it's retaken at a later date. And so this can be a little confusing when you're looking back at a student's history at past semesters. It can be confusing as to why it's listed this way or why it's listed that way. And so the computer's not always right with regards to how it was in the moment. It's not a snapshot in time. So here we're getting a little more complicated, right? UW has a policy that we recognize the most recent attempt. That means we include the most recent attempt in a student's grade point average calculation, and we exclude any previous attempts. And so here we can see in the spring 2016 semester, the semester on the bottom, the student took Psych 1000 and earned a C. And we see the capital letter I on the very right-hand side. And if we look up in the previous semester, they had taken Psych 1000 and gotten an F. And here we see an E, which tells the computer to exclude that from the grade point average calculation. And so again, if we were to calculate their grade point average in fall 2015, it would have been even lower because that F would have been included at that time. However, when the student retakes it, the computer excludes the previous attempt, and so it certainly helps a student. It helps the student to increase their GPA much faster. Okay, so we encourage you to practice. This is the best way to get good at this kind of thing, is to really look at situations, look at students' accounts, walk through GPA predictions with students. If you're meeting with them around midterm or later, where they might have an idea of what's going on in their class and what their grade might be, you can help them predict their grade point average. It's kind of a good exercise, especially students are really cognizant of it with regards to what they need to maintain scholarships or maintain good academic standing or anything of that nature. Look at student transcripts and observe different situations. This is a great way to practice. Just look back and see, find out what questions you have, and try to find the answers. We've put together a GPA worksheet that's contained in this module. Please use it, and when in doubt, ask for help. The GPA calculation can be a little more complex than you can imagine. There's definitely a lot of ins and a lot of outs, and so if you don't know what's going on or if there's something that's confusing, ask a coworker, ask a colleague, try to work through the problem together. Call the office of the registrar. They're a great help, and they're really professionals at how this stuff works. So I hope you've enjoyed this and have fun working through the worksheet,